We have a nice group today. Glad to see everybody. Thank you for joining us. And as I had let everybody know, we are blessed to have a guest on this particular episode, episode 5 of Zoom In with Daniel Root. And Lisa Johnson is someone I've known for many, many years. And she was kind enough to volunteer to go through the first, if you will, iteration of Detoxination. And it's kind of a funny story from my perspective because her husband, Keith, and I went through, well, we thought we were going to go through the original version. And there were several things that we hadn't quite dialed in correctly. So the end result was that we don't consider us going through it being the first to do it. So Lisa wound up doing it correctly. And also, she did it during a period of time where I was really, I think, overzealous or over optimistic that 14 days would be sufficient for somebody to do our program. And that's simply because the way our protocol works is so different than the original Hubbard method that I truly thought that it was going to be that much more dynamic. However, in this day and age, we're being so polluted that it wasn't to be. So she wound up doing 18 days, if I did my math correctly. She did the 14-day, 2-week version. And then, as you probably saw in the testimonial she did, that she didn't feel that she was done. And if you guys want to ask her questions about any of this, please feel free. So anyway, she went 18 days on the program, but her results were really fantastic. And she proved to me two things. Number one, our new version of the Detoxination program over the original Hubbard method was very much a win. But she also proved to me that really 30 days is really more appropriate for people. So, and now we also look at it from the standpoint of the body burden reduction is only about a third. So, and that's actually very good for most people who aren't poisoned, with gadolinium or mercury or lead or anything from, high toxic levels. The 30 days is pretty good for a lot of people, especially those who want preventative health or are doing this maybe because they're planning to conceive and they want to get their body burden reduced before they conceive, and the mother is going to breastfeed and things like that. So anyway, 130-day program can be sufficient for a lot of people, but I'm finding that with gadolinium and other things that 2 to 3 are really more in line. So anyway, Lisa is here and I think she's unmuted, and guys, this is more of a live Q&A, and Lisa and I will certainly be happy to kick things off and banter a bit about her experience, because I would really love to hear more about, it's been since 2018. And so how have things been going? And in fact, why don't you just tell us a little bit more about your experience?
Yeah. I thought it was a really great experience, and it was so wonderful to be able to be in there with your father, Dr. Root.
Yeah, you were one of the lucky ones with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was actually really great, because to be in there with the person that basically, wrote this entire protocol, developed it, just knowing that I was in expert hands was pretty amazing. So I feel very grateful to have been able to go through that. Yeah, and when I got to you guys, I really wasn't doing that well, actually. It had just been a couple years earlier that I believe I had been medically poisoned. And I think I had some toxicity and inflammation issues already building up to that. I grew up on military bases, and my father was a machinist. So I was exposed to a lot of different types of chemicals, jet fuel, machine oils, different things when I was growing up. In fact, one of the areas that we used to live down in San Diego was a former bombing range. It's where they used to practice all of their bombing. And then the military thought, hey, this is a great place to build houses. So let's just clean this up. We'll throw a bunch of houses in here, throw in some schools, let kids dig in the dirt. It'll be great. So that's a little bit of my background there. And then, years and years later, you go through all the regular things that the medical field tells you that you should be doing for your best health, various injectables for preventative reasons and such. And I went to go to India on a missions trip in 2013 and ended up getting 2 additional hepatitis shots to go there. And at the time I was doing a lot of work with the homeless outreach. So they said, oh, you should protect yourself, protect your liver. And before I knew it, I was feeling really, really bad. And it took me a few years to figure it out. But I found that there were some lawsuits in Canada. A nurse and about 80 people sued the manufacturer of the injection that I received because they were developing high inflammation, chronic fatigue, thyroid problems, different things like that. And when I looked at the list of side effects, which I like to call them effects, not side effects,
Right.
I had quite the list going. Of course, no informed consent on that either. So your detox really helped me to turn a corner, once I figured out kind of what had been going on. So I was very grateful for the fact that you guys were there.
The funny thing about that is that I wasn't aware fully of all of your situation because I was looking for somebody to just try the program as we had redesigned it. And, I really didn't do like a needs assessment or a full physical. It's like, get in that sauna. No, it wasn't that bad. But I was really grateful to have you come in. And then as we got talking about your case, and I realized that you were actually probably a very good candidate to test this to see if it's actually going to do any good. It was, I think, serendipitous. There was a reason why you came. In fact, like I said, we've known each other for a long time, and some of this information, like the trip to India, was stuff I knew about, but the actual situation that you went through was really not something we spoke highly or spoke a lot about. So it was kind of funny that you were a perfect guinea pig, may I say?
Guinea pig, yeah. And I think it was a good trade too, because I know I helped you kind of develop some of your processes along the way also. Like, hey, it'd be really easy if this was just right here and ready for when I pop out. Remember when I had to take the cell salts and take the different things, just kind of setting those things out. So I think that kind of worked out really well to help you to be able to better develop those protocols with somebody as they're going through it to make it nice and smooth. So
yeah, you were such the first that we hadn't even come up with standard operating procedures and how to streamline things. It was just a case of, does the new version actually work? And I had no doubt that it would, but it was a case of I just needed somebody who was not me to go through it, and so it was great. Anyway, you have more to fill on that?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I really enjoyed about the entire detox was, I kind of like, I remember thinking about it and thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to take so much time. Like I have to be at this place for what is it? The 15 minutes of exercise, the 30 minutes, then another 15, 45. So, I mean, that was like, what, 2.5 hours?
Yes, and in fact, you just brought up something else where in the beginning, we had a true personal trainer set up the the exercise portion of it. And when you went through it, he was insistent that we should do a partial exercise in the beginning and a partial exercise halfway into it. So that's not something we do anymore, but you were somebody who went through that. So what you just described is different than what pretty much everybody on this call has ever heard about. So it was kind of interesting that that was a period of time where the exercise continued into the break in between. So
yeah.
Want to clarify that.
So I remember just reframing that for myself, though, thinking instead of, oh my gosh, where am I going to have the time to do all of this, just reframing it into, I get to take this time for myself for a little while.
Right.
I thought that was something that was really important because, we all live busy lives. At the time I had younger kids at home, husband, job, the whole thing. It's like, where am I going to carve out the time for this?
Mhm.
I think it's really important to go into it with an intentional time frame of, this is the time that I'm going to take for myself.
Yes, and invest in your health. Absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And I remember also, I mean, it was quite a few years ago, but some of the things I think that were, I didn't realize how tired I was going to be from the detox process. And so I was really grateful to have, my husband was at home, in the evening time, so he would be able to fix things up for dinner. But what we kind of started to realize a few days in was just how tiring it was. And even when you guys did it the wrong way, he was tired as well. So it's really important to set up good nutrition for yourself, things that are really easy, that aren't very time consuming. Also, I do remember that being something that was really important for us as well.
Yes, good point.
Mhm.
And in
Yeah.
fact, you've become quite the nutritional consultant since then too, which I'm
Mhm.
very grateful for because, you're part of the extended team. And I think as we develop some centers that are hopefully coming in the near future, that's going to be an important role in this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important as you're going through the detox, everybody is thinking detox, detox. I got to get all this stuff out. And although you're taking the high levels of the minerals and the vitamins and such through the detox protocol, because obviously you have to keep your body in balance, it's really important to think about how are we nourishing our bodies as well, especially in the healing process. We need
Mhm.
to make sure that our body has everything that it needs at that point. And, just going over and grabbing something, quick and easy, it's not necessarily going to be the best solution for you. So I think it's very important to have those quick and easy, also healthy solutions just
Right.
ready to go. Mhm.
Good, good. Yes, that's absolutely correct. And sometimes I think convenience has really led to, our health conditions altogether, not just in the food, realm, but the convenience of everything in today's world actually takes away from health. So yeah, I agree with that on the food.
Yeah, the convenience and the busyness.
Yes,
It's like, we have these really long work days, and then we have all of these things that we give all this energy all day at work, and then we're supposed to come home and, take the kids to the soccer games and cook the dinner and make sure the house is clean and gosh, forget trying to find time for your own hobbies and self-care in
right.
there. So that was another thing about the protocol. When I think about it, taking that time to just sit in the sauna and read a
Yeah.
book.
And
Oh
read
my
a book.
gosh.
Yep.
Taking care of the mindset, you know,
Mhm.
um, listening to podcasts and things, keeping the phone kind of, outside of the sauna, obviously, but still having the ability to, maybe listen to things that are, health oriented, or to keep your brain in a good space, because when you're sitting there for 45 minutes, or I know a lot of
Right.
people come to you and they don't feel good and they haven't felt good for a long time, but there are a lot of things that we can do mindset wise that can help our physical body feel much better too. Mhm.
Yes, exactly. But I was so pleased with your results. And in fact, you want to talk a bit more about your results because it's in the testimonial, but I don't know that everybody's seen that.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So I went through the protocol for 2.5 weeks. So I think we set like maybe about 18 days or so.
18 days, I think was what the count was. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was experiencing a lot of toxicity symptoms, inflammation, chronic joint pain, um, generalized just fatigue and exhaustion, brain fog, um, losing my words. You just can't remember the word for something. And that to me was extremely frustrating. Um, So there were a lot of symptoms, different skin issues that I was having, big patchy, itchy areas, rosacea, like, redness. So just a lot of very symptoms that could just be non-specific to any specific type of illness. If you would, kind of put that together, like, oh, it could be this over here, it could be that over there. And when I would go to the doctor or look at my lab work, everything was just kind of always just on the low end of normal, and I couldn't kind of quite figure out how to get it up into better ranges. And going through the detox helped me to be able to turn a corner with that. I actually experienced a decrease in the brain fog. Initially, when I was going through the program, the fatigue was pretty intense because your body's doing a lot when you're detoxing and getting rid of these things. But as I started to go through the program, I started to feel that those inflammation levels were coming down. The thoughts were getting better. The big itchy patches I was having down on my skin were clearing up. I was very, very surprised by that. In fact, a lot of the dry skin issues just in general started clearing up. And I'm not sure if it was due to the fact of taking the oils daily, because there's the omegas in there. So those are very healthy. And then I believe that a big part of it is just removing the interference, the things that are in our body that are in the way of healing, because the body wants to just kind of sequester these things, but then it doesn't want to let go of them. So then you've just got this toxin that's just trapped in there that your body's doing a great thing. It's trying to protect you, right? And it feels like, oh, if I let this go and release it, then we're going to resorb it in the intestinal tract or in other ways. So a lot of these issues started to resolve themselves, and they continued to get better after I discontinued the detox, which was great. So those are some of my results. Yeah. And I think another big one was the sleep. My sleep improved significantly, started to feel more rested when I woke back up from sleeping, because I was kind of having some issues with not feeling rested. Yeah.
That's wonderful. In fact, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was the like constellation of symptoms that could be this or could be that. I've got a story to tell behind this. We're working on the detoxination training, and I had Susie, my wife, you know that, but most people don't. Anyway, Susie, working on looking up the different toxins that we see more commonly, including compounds like glyphosate and others. But the thing is that I've had her put together, the possible exposures, like where would you get these toxins, and what would be the organs that are affected, and what are the symptoms. And it's so amazing to see the overlaps. And what I plan to do with this data is to actually put it into a database so we can look up any symptoms, and compare them against all the possible contaminants. Now, I know that there are places on the internet where this can be done, but it's not to the level that will help us do the detox. So I've been just blown away by how many different conditions are caused by all these different toxins, which leads back to the actual research that is now showing, or at least proving to the world what I've always known, that the mitochondrial dysfunction that is the root cause of most diseases is caused by these fat stored toxins that are disrupting the enzymes and proteins that the mitochondria need to produce adenosine triphosphate or ATP energy. So the fact that they now admit that the mitochondrial dysfunction is root cause of many diseases, but they don't like to admit the next step, what causes mitochondrial dysfunction. And we've known for a long time that it's the chemical exposures, the fat stored toxins that are disrupting the enzymes and proteins. And so when you see all these conditions that in a lot of cases, even the ones that aren't listed in the stuff we're talking about here, but the conditions that have no known etiology, you can pretty much guarantee that they have an environmental toxicant basis. So anyway, when you brought that up, it just reminded me that we're working on this part of it, and it's very fresh on my mind. So
Yeah,
anyway,
well, no, I mean, and it's so true because our bodies are so sensitive. I mean, just think about a toxin, something that just seems so, so simple, like seed oils,
mhm,
right? I mean, if a person, and all of us are eating seed oils now, I mean, and they are toxic. They have to be washed and they have to be chemically refined so that way they're clear in the bottle and that they don't
mhm,
smell. And there's all these different processes that they're going through. They're very carcinogenic. But the thing is, we're eating these seed oils and they're hardening our cell membranes. They're literally plasticizing our bodies so that way our cells aren't even able to get nutrients in and out of them. They're not able to release toxins out of the cells and do the expiration that they're supposed to do. They're not able, the chemical messengers that are supposed to be, like insulin, opening the door, letting the glucose in and energy in. I mean, none of these things can function properly when our bodies are holding on to all of this toxicity. And
exactly.
just one little thing like seed oils affecting the cells globally throughout your body. And you figure these cells in your body are going through trillions of little processes all day long. So once we can remove the interference and we can start to give the body what it needs in order to heal, that's what it's designed for. It wants to heal. It wants us to be at homeostasis. So
Absolutely.
I mean, going through this detox protocol for me was something that I think that now I still receive benefit from it, even though it was so many years ago, because it kind of got rid of some of that
The barriers.
layer that was in there that
Yeah,
I
the
didn't
barriers.
even know was there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Looks like there's something in the chat here.
Yeah, why don't you bring that up?
AT says, how much niacin did you take before the sauna? Did you increase gradually? And how much time before the sauna did you take the niacin? So I followed Dan's protocol. I would take the niacin about an hour and a half to 2 hours prior to getting to you.
Back then, you probably were. This is a problem that Keith and I had when we took the niacin. We almost immediately went to the exercise and then to sauna. The thing is that the original Hubbard method did just that, and so there's holdover from those. You got to shake that off and start thinking rebound lipolysis. It's not the flush. It's not the flush. So the timing. When we got the timing of the human form of rebound lipolysis being after 2.5 to 3 hours, we were dosing you that way. It's been a long time, I know, so you probably don't remember. But when Keith and I went through it the first time, in the first like 3 or 4 days, we were basically going straight in. And then I literally shook my head. I was like, I cannot believe we've been doing this wrong. But we went through it and we continued to do it, but it wasn't, the spectacular version. And so when you went through it, everything was pretty much done the way we had designed it at that point. The one of the changes, however, has been the exercise, where we no longer follow the total suggestion made by our personal trainer, and that's because a lot of times people can't do the second exercise routine. And in the original Hubbard method, by the way, the exercise was done while you were still flushing, and then you would go into the sauna. So the exercise back then was more about assisting the body to sweat. And so today, when we do the exercise, the flush is long gone usually. Some people actually do flush for 3 hours, and it's a one-off deal. They don't do that every time. But anyway, so the flush is usually long gone by the time you're starting your sauna. So in order to get the liberated toxins out to the dermis layers through the blood circulation, we do the exercise to get that started. And of course, like with the original Hubbard method, there was the startup of the sweating. So the exercise was to get you to start sweating as well. But when you went through the protocol, we were still refining things. I'm still refining things to this day. And in fact, the nutrition side of the house is something that's really more and more evolving. And, I don't really like to promote diets, by the way, because that's a very controversial subject. Too many people have too many, opinions about diets. But if there's any one diet that I do think works for me is the metabolic diet, so the blood type diet. But anyway, what we just want to promote is don't eat the prepackaged, processed, convenience fast foods, and eat the whole foods, the organics, and even that today you can't even totally trust. I mean, have you heard about this A-peel? The stuff that's supposed to be, it's a covering to for longevity of these fruits and vegetables that can even be organic. If you haven't heard about A-peel, look into it, folks, because if Bill Gates is promoting it, it can't be good. So just know that.
I've read about it.
Okay.
Lee Weber, I've read about it. It's scary.
Yeah.
Because I
Hi, Lee. Glad to have you on. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
have not heard of it, but I will say one of the things that we do is we like to support our local urban farming initiatives. Luckily, in the area where we live, we have an organic farm literally right down the way. And they do a lot of courses and classes on, food, growing your own, water in your backyard. How do you do this efficiently? How to use organic growing practices with,
right.
without the use of pesticides, using companion planting and different things. I much prefer to eat food in season as much as possible and local. I mean, right here as much as possible. And maybe I don't have the variety at the grocery store might have, but at least I feel like I can trust the food that's there. And I mean, to be honest, at the grocery store, we really don't have that much variety anyways, because our food system has just been so narrowed down to a few crops that they want to promote. So I'd rather just eat the fresh food in season. And I think that would probably also alleviate a lot of people's food sensitivities if they would get better at rotating their foods seasonally. So
That's true.
another
And that's
thought there.
Yeah. In fact, I think the metabolic diet operates with that kind of mentality too. But again, I'm not trying to promote a particular diet, but it's the one that I know works for me. And I'm not following it, but I did look up what I eat and compared it. And yeah, it's exactly what my blood type is supposed to eat. So, but there are seasons and food doesn't grow in all seasons. So you shouldn't be eating the foods that aren't grown in your season that you're in, right? So it is very fascinating. And I know you've been studying this and this is right up your alley, but I've loved the fact that you guys have been growing your own food for almost as long as I've known you, if not as long as I've known you. And you had your chickens and you've given us eggs and things like that. And I commend you for it, and I'm envious because I haven't been able to do it myself as much. I do have my vegetable garden, but it's not really up to where it should be like yours.
Yeah, so. That's okay. Everybody, you just do what you can, and that's
right.
That's good. So yeah. I see another question here too from Ashley. She says, we have a 6-year-old son with Down syndrome and autism. We know he has heavy metals and mold. Can this program be used for kids, or are there any other recommendations for detoxing children?
So how old is the child? If you want to unmute and talk with us.
6 years old, she says.
Oh, it's 6. Okay, yes. So 4 years old is the low minimum because, in fact, 4-year-olds are questionable whether or not they can sweat like a normal adult. So if a child cannot sweat and regulate their body temperature, then really sauna is not a good idea. Now, you can argue that the Finnish folks put their babies in sauna, but they don't keep them in for very long. These protocols require extended periods of time. So it's not safe to put a child under the age of 4, but a 6-year-old, yes. Now, here's the other caveat. Is the 6-year-old able to follow instruction well enough to be able to do this program and commit to doing it, because if they can't do it daily, it can actually unburden the fat of these toxins, and then they'll just circulate through the body and redistribute. So it can cause further damage. But excuse me, if you want to speak with me, I do a complimentary Zoom consult, and I'd be more than happy to talk with you outside of this Zoom call. Just go to heal.me/detox. That's heal.me/detox to schedule a complimentary consultation. So everybody gets one free one. So feel free to use it. In fact, these Zoom in with Daniel Root is kind of a way to actually ask questions without using up that complimentary consultation. So by all means, take advantage of it. But I don't see any hands up yet. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions for you, Lisa, but oh, there's Tammy. You want to unmute, Tammy, and go ahead and ask?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Good to see you.
So Lisa had mentioned some vaccines that she had gotten, and I wanted to ask about that because that's kind of one of the things that I'm doing the program for. Did you ever find out specifically if you were able to detox those specific vaccines? And do you happen to know if it was the vaccines themselves or the additives or things that are in the vaccines?
Like adjuvants and thimerosal and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So as far as being able to determine what specific components of the vaccine I was responding to, I honestly believe it was the adjuvant. And the reason I think that is because I found out that there was egg albumin in the adjuvant. And I had never before in my life been allergic to eggs. And all of a sudden, I was no longer able to tolerate eggs at all. So,
Wow.
so I'm only using some deductive reasoning just based upon that fact. So I can't be 100% definitive though. So
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Tammy. Anybody else want to chime in with a question or have a question of your own even? This is the time to ask questions that you may have about the protocol, saunas, or toxicities. Lisa is my guest today, but I wanted her to be able to share her story and give you all a bit more inspiration for the protocol and getting your health back on track. I mean, my mission in life is to improve the quality of life and health of everybody that can do the program. So if you have a question, please feel free to chime in. Okay, AT, I see you got a hand up there. Go ahead and unmute and
Yeah. Hi, Lisa. How much niacin you took, by the way? And did you gradually increase it?
So there was a gradual increase over the time that I was doing the protocol. I started on a lower dose, and I don't remember exactly like what all the steps were. I just followed Dan's protocol at the time, just per the letter, what he said to do. And I don't think I even got all the way up to, what was it, like the 5,000 milligram dose, because we
weren't.
No. Well, we also determined as well, because just based upon like my height and weight, that we didn't want to have me go up that high anyways. So we worked within whatever the parameters were at that time. I think
Exactly.
I maybe only got up to, I would like to say, like I said, I'm loosely remembering.
It was a 14-day program, by the way. So
14 days. So I think I probably only got up to maybe like 3,500 or
if
maybe,
that, because we start the protocol really at 500 milligrams, and then and you work up to that. Don't ever take 500 milligrams out of the gate. And then based on body weight, you'll titrate up. If for example, if you weigh less than 200 pounds, it's going to be 100 milligrams, and 200 milligrams for anybody who weighs between 200 and 300. But the thing is that you have to know how to precisely dose the niacin and time it, because this protocol exploits two separate issues or conditions that niacin is able to induce in the body. The first one everybody seems to know about, or most people know about, is the flush. Now, the original Hubbard method was solely relying on the flush to, be the reason why niacin was important. But we discovered, in fact, we've known since the 80s about rebound lipolysis. The problem is that the study that my father had been operating from was done on sheep, and that wasn't very clear. And sheep apparently metabolize niacin in a much faster timeline than humans. So in 50 minutes is what that original study showed that rebound lipolysis triggered at, which worked perfectly within the Hubbard parameters for the program. But when we discovered that in humans, we metabolize niacin in about 3 hours. And in fact, there's a half-life of 20 to 40 minutes. And so niacin goes through 5.5 half-lives before it wears off. And during the time that the niacin is in your system, it's depressing the body's ability to produce ATP energy. So it's not going to shut it down completely, but the free fatty acid concentrations that are measurable in the blood are reduced dramatically when you're on niacin. So you're not able to produce as much ATP energy as normal. And after it wears off, the body's able to resume normal lipolysis, which is what the term is for when the triglycerides are broken down into glycerol and 3 fatty acids. The thing is that when the body's able to resume this lipolysis, it's like you've been holding a rubber band in your fingers, and this is normal lipolysis where your body's able to produce ATP energy. And then this is you on niacin, and after 3 hours, it's like you just shot that rubber band up in the air, and you get this tremendous what's called rebound lipolysis. Now, the reason that this is important to understand is because if you don't time things correctly, then you're not going to know when to go into the sauna. And you need to know when to even do the exercise prior to that. So, and one thing I also want to tell you is that at all times when your body's producing ATP energy, you're liberating some toxins from fat. Anytime free fatty acids are being released from fat cells, there's toxins being, if you will, siphoned off. That's not actually the mechanism. A lot of people like to think the fat cells are exploding or, they're breaking up and things like that. It's not truly that way, but consider it like a siphon effect. As the free fatty acids are coming out of the fat cells, you're getting some of the substances inside that fat cell released, and toxins are included. So the rebound lipolysis condition is going to increase that amount by at least 3 times. So when we talk about our protocol helps the body to detox 3 times faster, it's because of rebound lipolysis. So asking Lisa about, what niacin dose did you take? And, did you have to titrate or anything like that? Frankly, it's of course necessary to understand the niacin dosing to make sure you're getting the best detox you possibly can.
Right. Which is why you would want to coach,
right,
along with
Thank
you,
you.
or having the book and reading that, because if you attempt to do this, I think without that guidance, you could actually do your body some harm.
Yeah, you'll wind up redistributing toxins, and if there are certain heavy metals like mercury or aluminum or maybe fluoride, things like that, they can wind up in the brain. Your blood-brain barrier is almost a joke. It's been so compromised throughout your living on this planet with all the toxicity we're getting. So just know that the brain is being very poisoned through our daily lives. Fluoride is very bad. Aluminum is very bad. And when you receive these in ways that weren't necessarily designed, like injected or absorbed through the skin or inhaled and things like that, you're basically getting the worst toxicity from these things. And so you also need to recognize the brain is 60 to 70% fat. Not all of it's adipose, but the adipose tissues are going to be storing toxins. And fortunately for you all and the protocol, it's able to detox the brain as well. We've demonstrated that with both the brain fog lifting, the IQ testing that we used to do. So there was the pre and post detox IQ testing that we used to do. And by the way, we used to see 7 to 14 points of the IQ reclaimed or regained, because you actually are, they've been stolen by the toxicity. So you're reclaiming these IQ points. And I went through it in 1986 and reclaimed 10 points. And it was amazing because, frankly, I didn't know I even had brain fog until it lifted. So, but anyway, I hope that answers the question. I see Ashley's got a question. Go ahead and unmute.
Hi guys. So
Hi
I've actually just had a question kind of on the supplementation. And so I know we actually are, my husband and I, we lived in a house for several years. We're the ones that have 2 kids that had mold exposure, metal exposure. We had to demolish our house because of toxic black mold, and our bucket is so filled with toxicity. And we've gone to functional medicine doctor after doctor after doctor, and everybody just prescribes supplements, and there's like nothing beyond supplementation. And I just feel like supplements do absolutely nothing for our bodies anymore at this point, and we know that, and we're just done with it. And I know you can't recommend stopping supplements without talking to our doctor, so on and so forth. However, I'm just wondering, through the program, I know you have supplements that you recommend, but beyond that, are there other nutritional or supplementation guidelines for stuff that we should be taking on a regular basis beyond the protocol? So I think that maybe is a question for the nutritionist as far as recommendations on that.
Lisa, if you'd like to answer
I
that.
was going to say too, just real quick, that we are actually going to be signing up with the coaching program through you. Our house is almost done in probably like the next month and a half, and we'll be setting up our sauna and doing the coaching with you. Yep.
I look forward to that. Before I give it to you, Lisa, I just wanted to point out, niacin is a supplement, yes, but we look at it as something completely different. It's a catalyst that induces the flush and rebound lipolysis. So when I talk about niacin, I don't even like thinking of it as a vitamin or a supplement. And in fact, a little factoid here is the fact that niacin actually technically wasn't to be a vitamin. It was grandfathered in, but because our bodies produce niacinamide when we have tryptophan, the technical definition of vitamin basically isn't applied to niacin. However, in our day and age, we don't get enough tryptophan. I mean, we get it mostly around Thanksgiving with turkey, right? So the thing is that I look at niacin as a catalyst. So, and yes, we do have to replenish the good stuff because we lose that with the bad stuff. So, but it is mostly minerals. And we definitely have a full-on mineral and electrolyte and CalMag regimen that replenishes those. But as far as the supplementation goes, in the original Hubbard Method, he was dealing with drug addiction rehab, and he realized that and I'm talking about Ron Hubbard here, he realized that when people are high on drugs, they're depleting the B vitamins and they're eating junk food, right? Munchies. So they're not caring about nutrition. So he was more concerned about providing nutrition to help the recruits that were coming into his Scientology. Anyway, the other thing he believed was that the vitamins and minerals needed to keep in proportional balance with the increasing niacin, and we now know that wasn't necessarily true. So essentially, when we do the vitamins and minerals, we've got a reduced version of the Hubbard Method, and it is one that has been looked at, and it's one that I'm more confident with. But I'm more concerned with the minerals because we do know those get sweated out. So when you're sweating in the sauna. Anyway, Lisa, I know there's part of this answer I would love to hear your thoughts on.
Well, as far as mold is concerned, it's not just the mold itself, but it's actually the toxins that the mold themselves are producing in order to protect themselves, yes. The mycotoxins. Mm-hmm. One of the things that's going to be really important, and I know you're saying supplementation hasn't worked, and I don't know exactly what you're experiencing symptom-wise, but digestion is going to be huge. Conjugated bitters are something that are going to be that I've seen have been effective in helping people to detox from mold, because what they do is as the burden is being released from your body, the bitters actually bind to the toxins and then in the intestinal tract, and then help you to be able to excrete it. But the conjugated bitters also help you to increase your glutathione levels, which your body needs for your detox pathways as well. And it's something that is so simple to do. Bitters are something that you take, prior to eating your meals. They also aid with digestion, help you to be able to better break down your foods. And in our society, we aren't getting enough bitters in our diets. A long time ago, we used to eat a lot more foods that were bitter. Now our society is all about sweet.
Yeah.
We used to eat a lot of leafy greens that would come from the ground, like the dandelion greens and different things like that, which are actually a bitter herb. And you're supposed to be eating your bitter herbs prior to your foods. That's actually how we were originally intended to eat. But unfortunately, we don't do that anymore. So Mercola actually has a really great line of, you can find his conjugated bitters. I've recommended those to people before that are dealing with mycotoxins, and those have been very helpful. So I would just start there with really getting your digestion on track, because those are some of the places where, when we're experiencing all this toxicity and then we're having leaky gut issues, where things are then, like our intestinal lining basically becomes a little more permeable than it needs to be. Really healing that is going to be one of the keys. So that would be one of the things that I would be able to recommend. And I mean, any of us here actually.
Amen to that. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I take herbal bitters on a daily basis, before and after eating. Made from some licorice and artichoke leaf, dandelion greens, and, just put all those things together in a tincture and, eat that on a daily basis. It's something very simple to do. The other thing that could, if you're having upper respiratory issues, is using colloidal silver, and doing flushes and things like that to get things out of the out of your sinus tracts, where they're continuing to resurface and continuing to, create symptoms for you.
And let me interject on that too, because the nasal cavity is the coolest part of the body, and it's where most opportunistic pathogens are going to begin their infection. So what I recommend people do when they're in their sauna, if the sauna is above 133 degrees Fahrenheit, you can breathe in through your nose while you're in the sauna, and try to hold that breath as best you can. I had to practice this for a while, but as best you can in the nasal cavity. And when you exhale, breathe it out that way. So the nasal cavity will heat up in a sauna, and if it gets above 133 degrees, it tends to break down things that can grow in there. And it's something that I do whenever I'm in my sauna, and I just don't get sick. So I know the detox is also the reason why, but I do the detox now maybe every 3 years, and I'll do the 14-day version, but I sauna for 30 minutes every day. Now, there are certain days that, I may have to miss a day, but I sauna as best as I can every day for 30 minutes. And, I can't even believe I turned 60 this year, because I feel like a healthy 39-year-old. So it's an absolutely amazing tool. Everybody really should own a sauna. I mean, it's the best tool you can own for health.
Yeah, and keeping those the mucosal tracts clear is really important, because then, the molds and all of those things, they get trapped in that mucosa lining, and then they continue to proliferate and create further issues. So it's very important to keep that clear.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's helpful to you. I see.
Thank you,
here.
Debbie. I'm looking at the chat,
Yeah,
and there are a couple of things. Let's see what I see. How would this possibly help the beginnings of tremors or maybe Parkinson's? So first of all, let me just say that Parkinson's is now being demonstrated to be an environmental toxin problem. We've known for years that essential tremors, or ET, is based on things like harmine, I should say, and lead and other heavy metals. So they're really starting to admit that tremors, especially now with Parkinson's, has a very strong basis in environmental toxicants. So a protocol like ours is absolutely appropriate. And in fact, if you don't have any preclusions or contraindications, which you can find in our Facebook group in the files section, or on our website, there's a place to find them there. If you don't have any of those, then really, honestly, I recommend this protocol for everybody. It's the best foundation for good wellness. because it gets, as Lisa was describing earlier in this call, it gets rid of the barriers to health and allows your mitochondria to function correctly. And from there, your body has a fighting chance. I mean, I've seen so many things reversed on this protocol that have blown my mind, to be honest, because like, for example, I didn't expect Lyme to be one of the things that we were able to resolve. Now, I don't believe the protocol itself fully had was able to reverse the Lyme. What I believe happened was after the barriers were removed, the body was able to then fight back. And so that's what I believe with Lyme. The mold mycotoxins, the one thing I have a concern with mold, which by the way is so underrated as a health concern, a lot of people don't realize that they have actual mold toxicity, which then allows your body to become more toxic in all other ways. So mold is something you should really look into if you have any really weird symptoms or things like that. Look into mold toxicity, and it's something that our protocol can deal with the mold mycotoxins because they are fat soluble. But the thing is some people are so mold toxic that they actually have spores growing in their body. There's whole other protocols for that. So it's important to really, if you think you have exposure to mold, really look into the different symptoms and things that you may not have considered.
Yeah, so much overlap there. There's another question here that says, I would like to do this protocol, but I would need to go somewhere as I don't have facilities to do it on my own. Do you have any suggestions? I could go pretty much anywhere. Yes, I would say there are a lot of natural health practitioners that have infrared saunas that they will rent to you for time. I have a chiropractor here in the area that we are, and that's one of the things that she does is she will actually just rent it to you for 30 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever that time is. So if you find a practitioner in your area, you could let them know about the protocol that you're doing, and you could talk with them about renting that sauna time. So that
I'm going to interject. I'm going to interject on this because what I found working with clients around the world is that gyms are probably the best place if you can't afford a sauna. And by the way, there are 3 portable manufacturers that I do know make saunas that are able to do the protocol, because again, it's the sebaceous sweat we're going for here. And you have to be able to produce a consistent sebaceous sweat when you do our protocol. So the 3 manufacturers are Therasage, Relax, and Synergy. And they are the ones with the lower EMFs and VOCs, or volatile organic compound off-gassing. But the thing is that once the VOCs off gas and that's no longer an issue, the EMFs are not as bad as people think. They are bad, but let me just say the cons don't outweigh the pros. So, but the gyms are the first place that you can consider, because they typically, although they are dry saunas, they don't care how long you spend in the sauna. Therefore, you can do the full protocol in their sauna. Whereas a lot of these spas or places where you can actually rent time, they may not let you do the full complement. And I'll just briefly mention that if you're in an infrared sauna, it's 45 minutes, then a cool down period of maybe 5 to 15 minutes, and then 30 minutes. Not out of the gate, you work up to it. So, but just know that 75 total minutes is what we're looking for. I've put people through 3 30-minute sauna cycles for a total of 90 minutes. Example being the meth cop whose towels I love to show off, because he was producing these colorful, towels. They were either tan or blue or tie-dye, like the one I show in the picture. Anyway, I had him doing 3 30-minute sauna cycles because he was producing those towels, colorful towels, every day ever since he hit his target niacin dose. But if you can't afford one of these portable saunas, the second place to go would be, these places that will allow you to go longer periods. You can book back-to-back sessions, because as Lisa indicated, they're like 30 to 40 or even 45 minutes. I've seen some people go to like Perspire Sauna Studio. I've got a lot of familiarity with that group. Anyway, they will, you can get 50 minutes out of them. But essentially they will not let you go back to back or even go to another location that may be close by. So consider the fact that you need to get as much sauna time as you can. And I'll tell you briefly the fact that the rebound lipolysis condition lasts for more than 6 hours. And so you're in an elevated state of liberating of toxins, and you're only in a sauna for 75 minutes. So, we do a lot of binders to try to mop up what didn't get excreted that day in sweat. But at the same time, doing less than 75 minutes is just not a good idea. So try to get as much time as you can. And literally, if you have to pay to go to a place, consider how much that's going to cost over the long term and in gas, time, and everything, and revisit this whole idea of investing maybe $2,000 in a Therasage, and buying that for your health and the family's health. It's literally everybody in the family probably should do it too. So I hope that's an answer to the question. It is truly better to own your own sauna.
Go
ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just looking at if sauna, what can you do to get rid of the nasal sinus blockage because of the mold? I think, did we answer that already with the
She said
breathing into the nose?
if your head is out during an IF sauna,
Gotcha.
what can you do to get rid of the nasal sinus blockage because of the mold?
Did you know you can put your head inside of one of those portable saunas? I have a lot of people who do, but that's probably about the best answer there. You can put your head inside of those. It's kind of funny, you're crouched in there, but you only need to do it for a little while to kill off the stuff in the nasal cavity. All right.
Daniel, what about if you have a neurological issue? Then would you still put your head in?
What now? A neurological issue?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that right. So it kind of depends on the issue. Frankly, a lot of neurological issues are going to have an etiology in heavy metals. So it could be that you are better off to actually, get the body detox. By the way, when your head is out of a sauna, a portable sauna, it's still getting detoxed. The rebound lipolysis condition affects adipose tissues throughout the body, including the brain. The brain is 60 to 70% fat, but not all adipose tissues. But we definitely do detox the brain, and it doesn't really matter if the head is inside of a sauna. I prefer mine to be inside, but the way rebound lipolysis works, the toxins get liberated from fat and get back into circulation, and then they get out to the dermis layers through the exercise. So you're going to get a good detox with or without the head being in the sauna.
Mm-hmm. Regina says, how long in a dry sauna?
So this seems counterintuitive since dry saunas run hotter. In fact, they run about 180 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, but they actually take longer. The reason is because most people can only stand to be in a dry sauna for 15 to 20 minutes. 15 to 20 minutes before they have to sit out for maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So you go through repeated cycles of heating and cooling, heating and cooling, heating and cooling. And what happens there is that you don't get the core body temperature up to the point where the sebaceous sweat is produced at sufficient levels. It can take a lot longer in a dry sauna. So I have in my protocol a 6 sauna cycle run, excuse me, which it takes about 90 minutes in the 90 total minutes of dry sauna, whereas it's 75 in in infrared.
And what particular toxins contribute to Parkinson's? That's a question from Deborah.
That is still debatable. Just consider heavy metals are the big one, but excuse me, glyphosate is a very bad chemical. It's actually one of the worst scourges to ever hit this planet. And in fact, a study was done a long time ago where they tested the control group and the study group. And for some reason, the control group, they could never group that didn't have glyphosate in their gut. So it turns out that what they determined was everybody on this planet has been affected by glyphosate. The good news is that our protocol detoxes that, and it's not just through the sauna sweat, it's through the binders. So it's we actually attack toxins from several different angles on our protocol. I could go down that deep woods path, but just know that we actually have several different angles of attack for toxins on our protocol. including gadolinium toxicity. So if you've ever had an MRI with contrast dye and you have strange symptoms that you can't even identify, I mean, like brain zaps or electrical sensations, bone pain, just all kinds of really weird symptoms. Consider, did you ever have an MRI with gadolinium? Because that stuff is also, it's very nasty stuff, and they're still injecting it legally into the body. As long as there's the standard of care, it'll always, be there as long as the standard of care says it's okay. And if they're making a lot of money off of you, then that's not going to change. So just consider the fact that if you ever have to have an MRI, don't let them inject the contrast dye. They don't really need it for most cases. I do agree that there are a couple of times where they need to be able to see deeper, but just know that you want to plan to do this protocol after the fact. But basically, I think the question was answered. The thing is with Parkinson's, I don't really have a good answer yet. They're just now really admitting to the fact that there's a heavy metal and environmental toxicant component.
And AT says, would you say the same reasons for ALS?
That one I don't have data on. Suspicion, yeah. But I have not had the time to really look into ALS, the Lou Gehrig's disease. I have not had enough time to really dig deep into that one. But, anything that has no known etiology, you can just pretty much consider environmental toxicants are involved. So do we have any other hands or questions in the group? Because we're coming up. Yeah, we're at 7:30.
I have a question. It's Lee.
Yes.
Do you know if this protocol might help? Like my teenage daughter has OCD, and a lot of these brain disorders and things that kids have, I know, like some with autism, they say with the vaccines and heavy metals and whatnot. I was wondering if that might be something that might possibly, because that is one of the hardest things to find any treatment for, besides medication, which we're not a fan of. So
Right.
know if that might be something that I didn't know if that might help with any kids' brain disorders.
So I've never worked with anybody with OCD, so I have no data there either. But maybe Lisa has a nutritional component to insert into this equation.
Yeah, actually, one of the centers I work at, we work with kids that are on the autism spectrum. We also work with ADHD and also mental health issues such as OCD. And, really some of the contributing factors to any type of these issues, mental health issues, things like that, we do need to look at the nutritional component. And especially I know with OCD, sometimes people can be very sensitive to textures, to different tastes, to colors, to all of that. One of the main things that is in our foods that is definitely a toxicant is food dye. Artificial food dye is a top contributor to brain dysfunction, and especially in our younger population.
My sister had the same thing. She had a daughter with that, and she just changed the diet. I've done homeopathic, and I have a herbalist who actually prescribes St. John's wort, says that it works like Prozac. So we're going to give that a try.
The St. John's wort is really amazing. That's actually something that the constituents in the St. John's wort help to support the neurotransmitters in the brain, just the same way that the way that they're using antidepressants, but without all the side effects that you get from the antidepressants, like that, just like that kind of like overall, like that numbness and the, the eating disorders or the, the intrusive thoughts, all those things that could.
That's what she has. Yeah,
that are listed. Other brain supportives too that you may want to consider would be lion's mane. There are a number of different studies that show the support that the lion's mane does for the brain. A lot of the nootropic, the mushroom mixes can be very helpful also for the brain support. So, and also making sure that the person is getting in adequate protein. I would say protein is huge. A lot of us are not getting enough protein in, and I would say the minimum amount of protein would be 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight.
Mhm.
Protein is huge because you need all of those amino acids that the body is breaking down those amino acids, and they're sending those amino acids everywhere that needs to go, for muscle function, for heart function, but also for that brain function, and to support those healthy hormones. And
Mhm.
I would say if you're eating adequate fats, but really our society is too high on like the omega-6s. We're not getting enough balance of the 3, 6, 9s. So I would be definitely adding in things like walnut oil, flax oil, so that way we're getting a better balance on the omegas. And then like Dan is talking about, those base minerals, hugely important. We're not getting enough minerals through our nutrition also. There's a great brand, they're called Biomatrix. They make a great mineral supplement. That's one that I find works well for a number of people that I've recommended it to.
And it's got all natural ingredients. My problem is a lot of the
the fillers and all the garbagey stuff. Yeah, I know. No, Biomatrix is a pretty clean brand. I've been really happy with them. But and it's got the right zinc to copper ratios, the boron in there, the different minerals that we're just not getting through our food. So
could you say the name one more time, and I'm going to write this down.
Biomatrix.
Perhaps you could put that in the chat.
I can tap it in the chat here. And one other thing, please go to the I'll type it in here, but go to either the Biomatrix website to purchase it. Don't ever buy anything off of Amazon. I'm sure you probably already know that. Yeah. So, but it's called Biomatrix. Typing that in now. And it's the support minerals.
Okay.
And they're very reasonably priced too, which is nice. Yeah. So supporting that way. And honestly, complex carbohydrates, super, super important, but we want to be getting those, from our vegetable and grain sources. And honestly, like what Dan is talking about with the glyphosates and with the GMOs and such,
organic.
Yeah, well, organic. And I would also just be steering away from any American wheat products, period. I mean, if you're going to get your wheat from like Italy or something, it's a different product, and they're not using the glyphosates, and they're not using the genetically modified wheat that we're using here. That's a huge contributor, I think, as well, to a lot of the gut and brain dysfunction that we're seeing.
Have you seen the memes or the things with the two different products? They're the same product, but from two different countries, ours and some other country. And the ingredient list is completely different.
Yeah.
And ours have a lot more stuff that you cannot pronounce. That's never good. So
and
money and healthy people.
Another thing too that you want to look at is the bromine levels in the body. We use a lot of brominated products, and so there's obviously generally considered to be safe, but we're not thinking about the fact that we're getting this in our bread, and then we're getting it over here in this pasta product, and then in crackers, and then what's starting to happen is that our bodies are too high in this bromine and these brominated products, and so then we're not able to absorb other nutrients as well. So that's another thing to consider as well, is sticking with the organic, non-processed. I mean, I'm sorry, but your bread should get moldy. It's just that's and we don't need all these dough softeners and conditioners and different things like that. So just sticking as close to that kind of food in its most natural state as possible. So those should be things that would help support the body, which would then help to support better brain function. And then, obviously mental health services can be really helpful, just as far as, cognitive behavior therapy.
She's in exposure therapy.
Exposure therapy. Yeah, exactly. Just, along the way, like what she can handle. So, so I think that, getting our nutrition on point, making sure our digestive tracts are functioning well, and then those additional therapies. And then you just got to go through the process and, find what works for that specific person. So
Thank
Thank you,
Lisa.
Lisa.
yeah, you're welcome.
So let's take AT's question and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, can a person with amalgams in the mouth do IR sauna?
Yes. As a matter of fact, any metal like transplants or not transplants, I'm sorry, implants or, just any metal that's been inserted into the body, like knee replacements, hip replacements, things like that, infrared will bounce off that metal. Now, of course, the best thing for amalgams is to get them out of your mouth, but to do it right can be very costly. And you already have exposure to the vapors every time you chew or drink something hot or do anything like that. You're going to get these off-gassing mercury molecules that are going to affect your body. At this point, you can detox and handle what's already there, but consider getting those amalgams replaced and do it with a biological dentist, one who's trained in IAOMT, that are certified to do this in a very safe manner. And if you can get them out and do that, but yes, you can do the protocol with these amalgam fillings. Okay. So Deborah Nesbitt says she's got to go. And thank you for saying this was a great show today. And I really do thank everybody, but especially Lisa, for joining us today. This has been, I think, a really good conversation, and it was definitely a great set of questions you guys had. And let's do it again next month. It will be on a Wednesday, the third Wednesday of next month. I haven't figured out what day that is, but I like to rotate them between the Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And I'm also open to suggestion if there's a better date and time that we can do these, because I may do a couple during the month, and I just, it's hard to figure out when's a good time for the most participation. So, all right. Well, thank you guys. And
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you guys again, and join the Facebook group if you're not already there. Do hire me for your, consulting for, the heal.me/detox. That's how you can schedule that free complimentary consult. And I look forward to seeing you guys in those, and have a good evening.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thanks for having
Bye.
me. Have
Thank
a
you,
great night,
Lisa.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.